Sam Alexis, 6'8" center, transferred in from Florida. Previously at Chattanooga, his numbers and his production at Chattanooga obviously much better than it was at Florida. He wasn't a huge part of the championship team. You look at who Florida was playing in their front court. Very tall, very large humans. You look at Sam Alexis, 6'8", playing center, not exactly that super tall center-like build that people associate with modern college basketball. So they bring him in as an intriguing option. And then Josh Harris, I believe, was it today? Was it all the days blend together? I think that may have been today. 6'9", North Florida, same as Josiah Miles. And they brought him in as a big body as well. So I tweeted a graphic with Darren DeVries' face on it today saying, are you not entertained adding a big man in terms of like what Darren DeVries plays? There's a stat out there that like I don't think he played anyone over 6'9" last year or something like that. It was mixed responses in the replies. There's some people who kind of see the change in roster building, I'd say philosophy, as a welcome change. I feel like I'm in that camp where like we just saw the same roster get put out on the floor. I'm not necessarily opposed to switching it up, especially with new philosophies coming in. That being said, I have to acknowledge and will say that part of me does also believe that without adding a legitimate guy with size, it doesn't have to be a full-blown 7-footer, but 6'10", 6'11" style rim protector, rebounder, defensive-minded big is something that we've been saying for a month and a half that this team like is looking like it needs. I don't know if that's something they're going to go out and do, but what are your thoughts on kind of the roster construction as we sit here with 11 spots filled?
I think it's interesting. Like, obviously, as a basketball fan, basketball player, basketball enjoyer, I like the idea of having a 7-foot, rim protector. I think it's super helpful. I think it's nice to have. Do I think it's a requirement? I mean, his whole like Alexis is like the ideal DeVries center based on what they were doing last year at West Virginia, where they were top 10 in defense and didn't, like you said, didn't play a single guy over 6'9". They have, from what it sounds like, one guy, Bailey, over 6'9". Is there anyone else? And Alexis is like that 6'8" center. He's probably going to back up for Bailey from what it looks like, unless they bring in like a Federico. So it'll be interesting to see. It's definitely a new philosophy. I will leave it at this. Analytically, okay, lose rim protection, but bring in shooting. 3 is better than 2. 3 is better. 3 is greater than 2. That's where I'm at.
You look at all like the guys they brought in.
All
these guys
I'm not going to freak out about this until I see it on the court. Like I got to worry about Indiana football Big Ten championship run. I can't worry about a rebuilding basketball program right now. Like that's where we at. I understand it's an important part of Indiana University, but I'm just not gonna. I'm going to enjoy the ride. I like the idea of bringing in all these guys that average double figures at the D1 level. I think that's a great way to go about it. They're all productive. I feel like going into camp, I feel like the only confirmed starters would be Connerway, DeVries, and Bailey. And then it kind of seems like anything could really happen rotation-wise with these guys because you just don't know where they're going to be at the Big Ten level. But at least you have guys like Connerway and Reed Bailey, who I believe are certified Power 4 players, and will be able to set the tone, along with Tucker DeVries, obviously, with his scoring ability.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's obviously very clearly different. This is a team that has had 2 bigs for the longest time. Again, like if you're going to focus on scoring, you're going to focus on rebounding, you're going to prioritize athleticism and everyone being a threat with the basketball. I love what the roster looks like. All right, like to acknowledge what PK is saying in the chat is like, are there certain matchups where it looks like they're going to get killed in the paint? Yes. Are there counters and ways to punish teams for playing 2 plotting
I have
bigs?
a workaround.
Yes.
I have a workaround.
And I would say
Tatum Conway puts Braden Smith in a locker. That's how they don't even get it to the post. How about that? Perimeter defense so strong, can't even get it to the post. That's a real thing. It takes more than one pass to get it to the post.
I don't exactly hate a new philosophy. I'll put it that way. So I'm excited for what the roster looks like. And but again, like you said, like it's hard to it's definitely hard to panic or definitely take like a super negative connotation when it's not necessarily, we don't know it's not going to work. It's just different.
Yeah. And also we should be focused on football. Like, we are a football school right now. I hate to break it to everyone, but that's where we're at. We're rebuilding a basketball program that has a lot of rich tradition, history, and funding to it. Stuff doesn't happen overnight. This just doesn't. Like, I'm not even gonna freak out after year one. I'm hoping this team can make the tournament, and I'm wishing them the best. Excited to see who steps up. Really excited about Nick Dorn, having 2 years of him. I think is really exciting. And yeah, and I'm a big fan of Alexis because he fits the scheme. Reed Bailey, Connor Way, and Tucker DeVries are going to really carry this team long term, and it's just about who else on that roster can step up and make their way into the tournament. I think we talked about it before too. Like, I always do this thing where I compare them to UCLA, right? UCLA had
your
a
favorite
really
thing to do.
Yeah, they had it. Well, it's a similar situation because they kind of blew up the roster. They had 10 freshmen in the rotation, something like that, and they had a horrible year after Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez left. And so they basically invested some NIL, brought in a bunch of guys that averaged double-digit points, but yet these guys were coming from Louisville, Oregon State, Power 4 places, and higher leagues than what we're getting right now, and they got a 7 seed. So I think it's just important to temper expectations. I like what I'm seeing. I'm not ruling out a 7 seed. I'm not ruling out a tournament berth. I'm just, we could be a 4 seed next year for all I know. It's hoops. You just got to kind of catch fire, have chemistry, be able to make shots for a 4-month period. It's not, it's such a small sample size for such a large sample size kind of sport, to be honest. That
No, 100%. And to acknowledge your like 6 or 7 seed take, I saw like a Jamie Jordan tweet from 2 days ago where he said, if you're an Indiana basketball fan, would you lock in 33rd overall in Torvik and likely a 6 or 7 seed in the tournament? Like, would you lock that in right now? And I would lock that in. I would lock that in a heartbeat.
It's all about making the tournament. It's all about,
like, you're telling me this team as constructed right now is going to be a 6 or 7 seed. Like, yeah, I'm taking that in a heartbeat. So, but I think it's like, you're right. Like, we've been saying it for a couple weeks, like, temper expectations, be positive, be excited, but obviously, like, don't expect the world and then be disappointed if we don't get it. Like, it's going to take some time to rebuild that versus like you look at the position football's in, it's like, that's a race car that's ready to be driven.
Yeah. So 3 roster spots remaining. Once we fill those 3, we'll bring on Parlay Pundit again, and we'll have a whole episode on it.
Well, they're at 11. They're at 11. So 12, 13, 14, 15.
4
so
more spots
if they go
then?
to the roster limit.
If they go 15. They have 15, right? We still got to confirm that.
Dude, I'm going to be honest, and there are times in life where I don't know is an acceptable answer. And I went to go dig into the transfer, like, or the roster limit rules, and with the settlement and the pushback of the, there's rules right now. They might not be the rules in 2 weeks, and I'm just not confident leaning either way. There are Midwinter, off the top of my head, is a great NIL lawyer, college NCAA law person who posts a lot of his opinions on Twitter. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, definitely go check out his profile. He'll have like more detail about that kind of stuff. But it's a clusterfuck right now in terms of like what the courts, and it's 15 would be my guess. But I also read somewhere that maybe at 12, if you go above 12, like then it might cut your rev share. But
no, we're not doing that.
That wouldn't make sense because for
That's
football,
what we're
you can
rocking
go up
with
to
then.
85, and it's just, I don't know.
So then we only have room for 1 spot, and obviously, ideally, we'd like it to be a shot blocker, but it might not be, and I'm okay either way, to be honest. I kind of just trust Darren DeVries at this point. Kind of just got to lean into it and roll with the punches, and I'll make my assessment once I watch them play a basketball game.
That's where I'm at.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at.